Hello everybody, my name is Cool Blue, and this video is going to be talking about a few pieces of equipment. I'm actually going to focus on one piece of equipment, really, and I'll probably make a few other videos talking about other equipment, so feel free to check those out when those go up. I'll probably get them out the same day because I don't really have a release schedule. It's not really my thing. But the piece of equipment that I'm going to talk about today is going to be the WIDI Master Bluetooth dongles for Midi. Witty Master Bluetooth Midi dongles. And I just want to talk about a few things about them. So in total, I have 4 of them. So I have 4 of these guys, and MSRP for these are about $65 if you buy from Amazon, or $60 if you buy from the seller directly, if I'm not mistaken. But the main thing is that I wanted to talk about them because for my purposes, they are almost not quite exactly what I wanted. I wouldn't say I need it because I'm nowhere near proficient enough in music to even be dabbling in a lot of these things. But I just want to talk about a few of the things with these. So first and foremost, I have 4 of these, like I said before. There is a way to get them all to talk to each other, so you can kind of have like a Bluetooth hub. But in order to do that, you apparently need an application that's an Apple iOS. I don't know the details about it, but there was a YouTube video made about it, and I'll be sure to link that video in the description if I can remember to. But basically, these devices talk to each other directly. They can talk to a Bluetooth MIDI device that you have, so like if you have a phone or if you have an application on Android to help you out with doing that. And they can also, I guess technically they can connect to a Bluetooth hub if you have a Bluetooth hub, but the shortcomings of them are a few. So I want to be sure to talk about them. So the main one is that when they're on their own, they are a one-to-one connection. What I mean by that is, I think right now I have one of these connected into my KeyStep Pro down here. So my nice little KeyStep Pro, there it is connected up top. And it is currently connected to the one that's in the MIDI hub over here. So when I press keys on the KeyStep Pro, which you can't see on screen, but you can see these lights pretty much blinking. So these two are connected. The issue with that is that I have one also connected over here inside of my innovation circuit. And in the circuit one, as you can see, it is currently not turned on. It is powered, and this kind of threw me for a loop earlier, but basically there needs to be a connection between the devices one-to-one. So I'm just going to show you that real fast. I'm just going to take this one that I disconnected and then plug it into my Deluge, or Deluge, however you pronounce it. And it's going to automatically pair, which is cool, but and now it has a connection. So it's currently connected to the circuit. So let's see. So on my circuit, and I'm trying to do this without knocking everything over. Let me turn this up. So on my circuit, these are the buttons I'm pressing over here, and I think that's synth 2. So I'm just going to go to on my Deluge. I'm going to change it to MIDI 2. MIDI 2. And as you can see, I'm pretty much connected. So my Deluge is making no sounds right now. It's currently not plugged into my mixer right now, but I can control the circuit with this. So that's really cool. So it's like I have a Bluetooth MIDI solution. That's cool. The thing that's not cool about it, like I said before, is that it's a one-to-one connection. So what I don't have the ability to do is I don't have the ability to connect this to this, and then also have these connections talk to this down here. Like I said before, my KeyStep down here, my KeyStep Pro is currently connected to this, which is where you see it's blinking. And this is not connected to anything right now. Like I said, I just got this in literally today, so I don't really know what to do with it yet. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I can't hook it into the things. Now, one thing you can do with them, which I think is pretty interesting, it almost makes it kind of compelling to get, is that you can actually kind of finagle it to chain things together. So this is going to get a little weird, so please try to follow along, sorry, I'm going to try my best to explain what I'm doing so you guys can follow along. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect this from my circuit. And so this one is going to no longer have a connection that it knows in a second. I'm going to connect this to my Crave over here. So I'm going to connect them to the MIDI out of the Crave. And then I'm going to do a very strange thing. So I'm going to utilize this one and this one. So these are the two MIDI ins for the Witty Master. And what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to daisy chain both of these off of the same MIDI out. So for context, just to explain a little bit, the Witty Master Bluetooth devices, the output is what gets power. So the output gets power from the port, basically the MIDI out of whatever device you're connecting to. I'll talk a little bit more about that later because there are some caveats. But the main thing is that the output's connected here. So so once you have the output, once it's powered, then you can connect the input port, which is this little small handy dandy cable here. And you can connect this into the MIDI in, and that connects into a mini headphone jack, 2.5, two quarter, whatever it's called, headphone jack, and it connects in like that. So now, just using this simple connection right here, I have the Crave hooked up to my Deluge, and the Crave is on channel 6. So let me change this to MIDI 6. And I think the volume's down. Maybe? No? Volume's not down? What? Oh no. It's not powered on. The power cable got disconnected. So let me turn the power on. This is what happens when you try to rearrange to make a video. The things I do for the culture. For the culture, right? There we go. All right. So now the Crave is powered up. That means that this device is going to be powered up. That means this is connected to that. And this is on channel 6. There we go. So, oh, jeez. Oh, what is that? Stop. Oh, Lord. Okay. You know it's connected. It's connected. Actually, you don't know it's connected. Hold on, let me do better. Is it sustained? Oh, right. Okay. That's. I think that's what's happening. So that's another thing to talk about too. So let me turn this all the way down so we don't have to listen to it. There are a few shortcomings with this particular setup. So of course, if you know a little bit more about MIDI than I do, you would have figured this out, instantly. But basically, because you have these connected the way you have it connected, there's kind of a loop being formed. So this out is going to this in, and then this in is going to the device, and then this device is sending its out to this in. So it's kind of forming a loop. That caused a few issues, I think specifically with my Deluge and my KeyStep Pro. Once I understood what was happening, use turn one to not receive MIDI in. So I turned my KeyStep not to receive clock in and transpose, whatever it's called, in. And pretty much that solved the issue. But it is definitely something you gotta be mindful of. In this particular situation, I think that's what's happening. I hope that's what's happening. Nope. Okay, I just don't know how to use my equipment. Cool. Moving on. But the main thing to talk about though is that this is now connected to that. So continuing with the same example, my ignorance of my own equipment aside, what you can do is you can connect a splitter into the MIDI out of the WIDI Master, and you can basically split the signal. And I've done this up to 4 different devices. I'm pretty sure you can go higher than that. But effectively, this signal is now going to send to here, which is going to go to this in and this in. So this is on MIDI channel 5. So I'm on MIDI channel 5. So you can now hear that. And then of course I'm stuck in the loop again. Now, with all things said, the whole loop situation, like I said before, is just I need to tell the Deluge not to receive MIDI in. One of the easier ways to address that is to literally just not connect the in, and then that fixes the issue. So that should be fixed. Yeah, okay, it's fixed. This note was stuck. Yeah. So that's currently fixed. This is MIDI 5, MIDI 6. Yeah. So that fixed the whole loop situation. So those are just some things I wanted to talk about initially. There are a few other things I want to mention, but I just kind of want to make a halfway point to kind of catch up, make sure I summarize what I talked about so far. Basically, the Bluetooth devices, they work, but they kind of don't work. If you have a Apple device, iOS device, you can actually use an application that can actually bridge things together. So you can have multiple Bluetooth WIDI devices connect to it, and then you can kind of use the phone as a hub to kind of tell which ones to talk to which ones and prevent loops from happening. That would be a much more preferred way to do things. Sadly, I have Android, so I don't really have access to that, or at least I haven't found a way to get access to that. As far as the devices talking to each other, you can create loops very easily if you're not paying attention, like me. In this situation, the simple fix is to not connect the MIDI in to this device and then connect only the rest of them to these ones, because these devices are basically listening to the deluge for their signals. That pretty much fixes the issue. Another thing too is that you cannot have multiple Witty Masters talk to each other. From what I've seen so far, there might be a way to do it. Maybe there's an application I'm missing. If you have an iOS device, like I mentioned before, you can do it through some Apple application that exists out there. But in my specific use case, it kind of has a use and kind of doesn't have a use. I mentioned before there was one other thing I want to talk about, and that was kind of explaining the idea of MIDI power. So this is one of my favorite devices. This here is the Fader Fox EC4. So it's one of my favorite devices to use because it just has all the knobs and all the things, and I can customize it. I'm not really going to talk about too much here because there's videos and videos upon videos out there, but I will make a separate video about this later. But the issue with this device is that the MIDI out does not provide power, meaning that I sadly don't have the ability to connect this to one of these devices and then kind of use this to send to everything. Now, granted, I already know that I can't connect multiple of these devices to each other now that I have 4 of them. So consider that an investment that I've made in a lesson. But the other caveat is that this can't power it. So this can receive MIDI in from these devices if it's kind of daisy chained in or connected to this daisy chain. So just to explain that, if I got my cables here. Yeah. So I can actually set this up, and this is kind of what I had set up before on the circuit, but this is a 3.5 inch jack to a 2.5 inch jack. So I connect the 2.5 inch, and I think that's the measurements. Don't quote me on that. And I can do this to MIDI in, and then I can go into setup. Is it setup? There's a MIDI. Oh wait, I think it's no. I forget the combination. There's a button combination to do MIDI listen. Oh, there it is. Just had it. There it is. Is that it? Okay, sure, right. Me not knowing how to use my equipment. But anyway, going into here, if I hold down the shift, we should be able to see that it receives a note. So you can daisy chain this into it, which is cool. So you can see that it's receiving MIDI information through this very convoluted link over here. So that's cool. That's good to know. Like, so you can kind of use one of these devices to talk to multiple in devices. So in my specific case, I only have 2 devices that would be endpoints, I guess. In reality, I want my circuit to be, I want to use my circuit for pads, and I want to use my deluge kind of as like the brain, and I want to use my key step as a controller for everything. So in my specific setup, I need to think about this a little bit more to kind of figure out how I want to orient things. And then of course I want to use this to kind of control everything. So it's a little bit of a puzzle for my own setup. But it has definitely been a very experimental journey, I should say, through all this. Another thing to mention too, just in case you're wondering, so this is just a 3/4, three quarters 3/4, 3.5 inch to 2.5 inch, and I can actually take one of these guys and I think the better example is if I use the deluge, sure, because I already have it set up. Man, this means really complicated. Ooh. Hold on. There we go. So if I connect the EC4 to the deluge using just the out to the in, so I use the outs of the 3/4 that this has to the in, which basically is just to one of the ends of the WIDI Master. It basically just works as a normal MIDI cable at that point. So let me get out of this mode. Huh? Okay, there. So let me set this up. So if I do learn, actually, let me just start a new one so I can kind of prove it. Yes. So I have a whole new project over here. Nothing's kind of set up. This is on MIDI channel nothing, and I do learn. Why is that receiving? So, okay, I'm gonna turn the deluge up, and these are all set to note press. So this sound is coming from my deluge. So as you can see, you can use this cable as a MIDI cable. I don't really know what use that really has, to be completely honest, because this whole convoluted setup is strange. But it's effectively an extension, at least as far as I can see, an extension of the idea of what we were doing over here. Whereas this is probably significantly more useful than this. This is just an option that you have. So I just want to mention that. And also this does receive MIDI through. So this particular device can do MIDI through. That means that if I connected my circuit, which I'm not going to do, but if I connected my circuit, connected to this MIDI in, and then this could do MIDI out through the Witty Master's cable thing to get into there. So I mean, that might be useful if you have a specific use for something like that. It's marginally useful. That's the best way I can put it. The idea is really good. I kind of wish they can talk to more than just one, so I can have a MIDI hub without having to have a MIDI hub, which I have a MIDI hub here now. And even with the MIDI hub, my use case is kind of specifically limited because of how the connections have to happen. So this connection to this connection has its uses, sure, but I mean, this is connected to my key step, and then I guess I can keep my key step cables without having to be all over the place. Maybe that's a use, I don't really know. And I can connect the second Witty Master to this, so I can have it talk to one other device. I think in that case I'm going to connect it to my circuit, and then leave my deluge kind of on the table and physically link to everything. I don't know. I still have to play around with it to figure out what the best configuration is, but I did want to make sure that I made at least a video to talk a little bit more about it, because I know during my shopping experience, I was looking for all the videos I could find, and I found literally a few. And they didn't talk about nearly as much as what I wanted to know about. So there you go. There you go. That's really all I have to talk about. Key takeaways: the Witty Masters are useful, assuming that you know what they're useful for. They're useful for connecting one device to another device, Bluetooth, which is good. If you have an iOS device, if you have an iPhone or iPad, you can get an app that lets you kind of do a MIDI bridge to everything, so you can connect all the Bluetooth Witty Masters and then do your routing. Be wary of loops. Loops can happen if you have the in and out to two different devices. Then the signal kind of just keeps sending over and over and over. Be wary of MIDI power. MIDI power is very specific to some devices. Like I said, for instance, this particular device can't do it, so there's no way for me to kind of use it as a wireless device. Well, I guess wired, because it has to be connected up here for power, but you know what I mean. And the last thing is that you can do some cool bridging things like this, which I think this is probably the most useful thing I can do with it. Now that I have this over here, I have to figure out how best to use this. I don't think I can use this anymore because I want things going through here for routing. So that's a whole nother kettle of fish, unless I want to buy more of these guys, which I don't. But there you go. That's pretty much it. don't really know what else to kind of explain. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I'll try to answer to the best of my abilities, especially if you have any questions on as far as what I can do for testing. I feel like I've exhausted all the possibilities I have so far with these guys, and maybe the WIDI Master folks will make a new firmware that lets multiple talk to each other, because that will be a good selling point. So yeah, hopefully it helps you be more informed. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, I'll see you guys whenever.